Good morning and welcome to our Sunday worship service. I am Martha Schmidt and I'll be your celebrant this morning. I have been a member of this church for I think about 30 years. I've done a lot of the jobs here. I like being a member of this church, and I like being helpful and I like being kind. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all those who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad you are here. If you haven't already stopped in, please visit the welcome desk in the foyer and pick up a name tag and a newcomer's packet. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags and can point you toward additional information. If you're joining us online, we ask you to fill out the newcomer form on the website so that we can be in touch to answer any questions you might have. Meanwhile, our usual practice is to gather in community for coffee and conversation after the service, either downstairs in our fellowship hall or in our Zoom room. We want everyone to feel supported and at home here. So let's begin in that spirit by saying our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now, we will take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you are at home, please turn on your camera now. Please turn on your camera. It says, the words are a little different, so please wave to us. Now, people who are attending the service in our building, it's your turn to wave. Well, we are glad everyone is here today. I do have an announcement from Melissa Francis.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm honored to be part of your lay pastoral ministry team. Today, your lay pastoral ministry team will be hosting a holding circle immediately after the service in front of the heart sculpture. The idea is that we can together hold the feelings of the heart that arise in response to events we experience during any week or from the worship service witnessed today. We all carry so much in our hearts, from gratitude to remorse, from hope to despair, from joy to sorrow, and much more. The holding circle is an opportunity for whomever has something weighing on their heart to be supported and held in a circle of care and love. We will mostly be together in silence, but if you choose, you can share whatever you are carrying in a word or two. In either instance, we will hold it with and for you, because burdens shared are eased. Members of the pastoral ministry team will come forward and form the circle immediately after the service, after each service starting today, and you are invited to join. We won't take up too much of your time. Our first holding circle will begin today. Thank you.
We preface our service by acknowledging our church was built on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called the Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Stitz Auch called the Coeur d'Alene. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was unfairly taken, ground that cries out for justice and for reverent care. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. We are hoping that folks joining us via Zoom have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together. And we will say together, in the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. Please stand. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
Thank you. Please be seated. That's a little creepy. We've got this new thing that raises the microphone up and down. Oh. Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Stevens, and I am lucky enough that I get to serve this congregation as its minister. I bear greetings from the over 80 members of our community who are at Field Springs State Park for our annual snow retreat. The report is that the snow's a little crispy down there, but the company is very, very good. Because most of our religious education volunteers and employees are at the snow retreat, we're suggesting that the older kids stay here in the sanctuary for the service. We've got extra art projects in the back for you to do. Grown-ups can do the art projects too, if it gets boring or anything, you know. And we do have nursery care for the littlest ones, and we should have our caregivers arriving from the snow retreat to provide care for any folks who start feeling a little squirrely in the service. But you shouldn't get too squirrely because it's not boring. Today's service is all about art and creativity. So later in the, you all should have, those of you who are here in person should have a piece of cardboard and two 3x5 cards, or they're a little bigger than 3x5. I think they're 4x6. You'll need a Sharpie and two colored pencils. You're allowed to swap colors with your neighbor if you decide that you want more than two. And if you are at home, we'd invite you to also find yourself two pieces of paper, a pen. Fine-tipped is better than wide-tipped, and some crayons or colors, or just keep it in black and white if you don't have those things handy. At a time when so much is happening in our wider world that is concerning and serious and heartbreaking, we are choosing to focus our Sundays on learning practices together that help ground us and keep us open to experiences of beauty and joy. It's not about ignoring or turning away from reality or from the suffering. We're hoping that these practices will help us be present to all of the awful stuff without losing hope and without losing our humanity. So while you actually always have permission to doodle or knit or engage in other creative pursuits in church, today you have a very specific invitation, because all of these activities, all of our creative activities, help us stay hopeful and humane and kind and generous. I'll say a little bit more about that later. But for now, I invite you to rise, embody your spirit, and we're going to sing together. Singing together is another neuroregulatory practice, so it's good for us.
He has so much fun with that. Now let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity together. For those of you able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on your screen. We typically give away all of the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called the Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is the Moscow Volunteer Fire and Emergency Medical Service Department. With a team of more than 100 volunteers, they responded to over 2,800 calls last year. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we will now take some time to practice generosity together.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Content warning, I'm about to geek out about neurobiology again. So, as I mentioned, our service today invites us to explore creativity as a neuroregulatory practice. Now, creativity has value in its own right. We don't need to be seeking emotional or mental healing in order to justify taking the time to be creative. In fact, I'd argue that creativity is a huge part of what makes us human. But it turns out that it can also keep us human, bringing us back to our best selves. So, you know how people like to talk about being right-brained or left-brained? With the right hemisphere devoted to logic and order and the left to creativity and chaos? In reality, studies show that many different parts of the brain are active when we're expressing ourselves creativity. Specifically, this is from Scientific American, there are 3 separate large-scale neural networks that fire up when we are being creative. They are the executive attention network, which allows for communication between the outer regions of the prefrontal cortex and areas toward the back of the parietal lobe. This is a network that is typically recruited when a task requires that the spotlight of attention is focused like a laser beam. The second neural network is our imagination network, which involves areas deep inside our prefrontal cortex and temporal lobe, as well as various outer and inner regions of the parietal cortex. This network activates when we're constructing dynamic mental simulations based on personal past experiences, such as remembering, thinking about the future, and generally imagining alternative perspectives and scenarios. The third one is the salience network, which consists of the dorsal anterior cingulate cortices, the DACCs, and anterior insular. This network constantly monitors both external events and the internal stream of consciousness. It gives us flexibility to pass the baton whenever information is most salient to solving a task. So there's also a neural network that becomes less active. This is a study conducted by neuroscientists at the University of California, San Francisco. And what they found was that when a jazz musician is improvising, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex becomes less active. It quiets down. Like a neural mother hen, the DLPFC is connected to planning, inhibition, and self-censorship. Its deactivation has been suggested to play a role in altered states of consciousness such as daydreaming, meditation, and REM sleep. This pattern of brain activity may be intrinsic to the creative process, which can apparently occur outside of our conscious awareness and beyond our volitional control. Now, if you put all of this information together with what we know about trauma, what you find is that when we experience, well, okay, let me just remind you. When we experience repeated stress or trauma, say from reading the news, our limbic system, our reptilian brain, our pesky amygdala, those parts of our brain get overloaded. And we lose access to the rest of this magnificently complex brain. We get trapped in a fight or flight mentality. So just like EMDR and timeline therapies and EFT help us transition out of fight or flight and into a state where we can think again, making art is an incredibly effective way to soothe our nervous system and bring us back to our best selves. In studies of combat veterans, it's been found that creating a piece of art allows them to express what's going on inside, express their feelings without words, and they find their way back to themselves by talking about this piece of art. So the experience that they have that are causing the PTSD, they make the art, they're not able to verbalize until they make the art. Once they make the art, they're able to move through the experience and heal. So, maybe not everybody loves geeking out on neurobiology as much as I do. So let me just give you a brief summary of what I just said. The creative process activates and strengthens our brain in much the same way that exercise activates and strengthens the muscles in our bodies. So if we want strong, healthy, supple, and resilient minds, we need to incorporate creative outlets into our lives. We need to quiet the critical voice, that mother hen. We need to let our creative juices flow. Creativity is play. It's fun. And it's absolutely natural and instinctive. If you don't believe me, just go hang out with some kindergartners for a while. But it's also profoundly transformative. If we use the things that are troubling us as inspiration, we can work through some of our feelings and the thoughts that are getting in the way of our health, our wholeness, our joy. Now, you don't need to and just recycle that piece of paper. We could take photographs and never show them to anyone. We could doodle in the margins of our notebooks, and it's enough to just daydream, to just imagine stories and scenarios. But we can also do things that enhance the world around us, like planting a garden. Martha?
When I was a little girl, my mother had a wonderful box of Prismacolor colored pencils that she would let me use if I was very careful with them. There were 48 different glorious colors. The thing that makes these pencils so special is their soft lead, which lets you apply the color easily and vibrantly. This was an early introduction into the wonderful world of color. I attribute this box of pencils to leading to my desire to take as many art classes as I could in high school and college. I wasn't really a great student. I was good enough, but art class was a place where I could lose myself in the process of completing the assignment well and find joy in the process. And I think art class was a refuge during an otherwise trying time of schooling. And then art kind of fell away from my life until my husband and I bought our first house here in Moscow. And art and creativity reemerged in a very different medium. We had lived on the South Hill in Spokane for 3 years, while Dan was in family medicine residency. The South Hill was developed in the early 1900s when Spokane was wealthy from the nearby silver mining industry. We loved to drive around the nearby neighborhoods, admiring the beautiful Victorian and craftsman-style mansions and houses. And we were very surprised to see that many houses the front yards were built around large boulders in the front yard landscaping. I think some of these houses were built around existing rock outcroppings. Another thing we really loved in Spokane were the huge basalt columns. You've probably seen them. Have you seen the water feature made of huge basalt columns on the west edge of Riverfront Park? Yeah. Or have you seen the huge rows of basalt columns on the way to the airport? Yeah? I'm not seeing any nods. We were just in awe of these basalt monoliths. The house we bought when we came to Moscow is on the top of a hill, and the yard slopes down in almost every direction. The backyard was a long, sloping, neglected dog yard. I wanted to have a level area of lawn to sleep on outside in the summer. So we built a 4-foot-high retaining wall out of large pieces of broken concrete that we'd scrounged with permission from someone's new driveway construction. And that was our first not exactly rock creation. One day, when Dan came home from work, excited to tell me that he had found a place where we could collect basalt rocks, maybe even hexagons. So early on a Saturday morning, we loaded up our little pickup with lengths of chain, 2 come-alongs, pry bars, and a heavy steel plate that we used as a bridge to slide the big rocks into the pickup bed. Our destination was a small rock quarry below and at the edge of a wheat field near Genesee. Dan had asked the owner of the property for permission to gather rocks from this quarry. Dan described making a home visit in Genesee and seeing a manageable sized hexagon in the front yard and started looking around for the likely source nearby. We made many excursions to Genesee doing the work of loading the heavy rocks and then unloading them in our front yard and then strategically placing them to create a faux basalt flow. Next slide. There's another picture. Oh, really? I'm so sorry. Oh, no, you do have it. Maybe you showed them both before and I just didn't look up. So one of them is, that one. Go back, that one. Well, I'm not so proud of that one right there, but I am proud of the hexagons. Yeah, this one. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah, that's what you're seeing. Looking back, I realize we've done quite a lot of rock improvements to our yard. Our yard boasted the largest weeping willow tree in the city right-of-way. Who would know? But the large exposed roots of this tree were awkward, lumpy and awkward. I wanted us to have a pleasant place to sit outside in the shade of this magnificent tree. Many rocks were gathered on the weekends when Dan was free, and during the week, we would spend a little time together after dinner placing the rocks and leveling the ground under the tree without damaging the roots. It was kind of like doing a large puzzle, We have these rocks, how to place them next to each other in a pleasing way. And I don't have a picture of this project because that tree blew over 10 or 15 years ago, and I've kind of reworked that area into a planting space. But Dan built around the large trunk of the tree, he built a large wooden bench that encircled it. And we did use it as an outdoor room in the summertime in the shade. Another but related part of our love of rocks is our desire to create a drought-tolerant and pollinator-friendly landscape. This work has been very creative for me. I got rid of lawn and replaced it with native plants, which only require additional water their first summer of being planted. And what a delight it is for me to observe the variety of local bees attracted to the native plants. Did you know that? That we have a variety of, it's not just honeybees out there. There's so many different kinds of bees. I didn't know that, so that was fun for me to learn. I thoroughly enjoyed the research I did to learn more about these topics as I prepared myself to the work of transforming my yard. And there is the continual joy walking around my yard, trying to spy any new development that needs my attention.
Thank you, Martha. So are you ready to try making some art together? We are lucky enough to have Kat Clancy with us today to lead us through a creativity meditation. Kat?
Good morning. I'm Kat Clancy, and I'm an artist. Today I'm going to introduce you to two forms of meditative art, neurographics and Zen doodling. You'd probably call it Zentangle, but Zentangle requires that you have specific instruction to be able to teach the Zentangle, so I have not done that. I cannot teach you Zentangle. I can only teach you Zendoodle. Both are art that anybody can do. You don't have to draw a stick figure. You don't have to be an artist. There isn't any right or wrong with either one of these things. They allow you to find the joy and peace of meditation in art, and possibly to create something that you can frame or turn into a postcard to send a friend, or create a bookmark for yourself or for a gift. Our time is limited, so I'll cover the basics that you can do along with me. You'll need 2 3x5 or whatever size index cards, a Sharpie, a couple of colored pencils, and a hard surface. Belinda will pass those things out to anyone who still needs them. So raise your hand if you still need some art supplies. We're going to start with Zendoodle. And the Zendoodle are the black and white ones on the slide. Zendoodle is about intention and repetition. So you want to get comfortable, take a few deep breaths, and feel gratitude and appreciation for the paper, for the tools, for the opportunity to create something. Start with one of your papers and put a pen dot in each corner. The next slide. So you can see there's a dot in each corner, and then once you've done the dots, then draw a line between each dot. It can be a straight line, but why worry about trying to make a straight line? Just make a curved line, and then you don't stress about it being straight or not. Then once you have your 4 lines around the 4 corners, you want to divide the paper up into 2 or 3 sections. You'd probably do more sections if you were doing this on your own, but since our time is limited, we're just going to divide it into 3 sections. And it can be any section, it can be any sectioned any way you want to. Now you want to create a pattern in each section. So I've shown 3 different kinds of patterns that you can do, and you just basically repeat the same patterns over and over again in each section. So one of them is just curved lines that go up and around, and then next to that you do it again, and then you keep doing it until it's all filled in. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So there you can see it's partially done with each of those different patterns in each section. And you just keep going it up until you have all of the sections filled. You can, on the internet, search for Zentangle. You'll find their website with instructions, and you can also find lots of patterns and lots of examples on YouTube as well. But I'll just let you work now. So once you have your Zentangles all done, you can use your pencil and add shading if you want. You can use colored pens or colored pencils to add color to the picture. And if it's complete, you want to be sure to sign your work. Okay, so now we're moving on to neurographics. In 2014, a Russian psychologist and author, Pavel Piskarev, coined the term neurography or neurographica and invented a type of therapeutic art called neurographic art. Neurographic art is meditative and uses the intuitive artistic process that links the unconscious and conscious mind using brain cells called neurons. When the artwork is finished, it ends up resembling neurons and cells. Creating the lines and rounding the corners enables the connection between the conscious and the unconscious mind. The whole process is very meditative, but it's also a great tool for dealing with a problem or solving stress. The suggestion is that you write your intention, a problem, a goal, a topic, a theme, something that you want to find peace with in your life on the back of the piece of paper before you start to draw. And then you create your neurographic drawing. So to get started, you want to set your intention. Write that word or words on the back of your page. You want to not feel so sad. You want to figure out how to build a new birdhouse. You want something that your brain is going to engage upon in your subconscious while you're doing the conscious art. So once you have your intention, then turn your page over to the white side and use the pen to draw long, looping, and crisscrossing lines, scribble-like lines on your paper. So you don't want to do a whole lot of lines. Again, our time is limited, so 3 or 4 lines, and they want to go all the way to the edge of the paper. And they can be straight lines. I've just always done it with curved lines. You want to think of your intention as you draw the lines, and you also want shapes that overlap the lines. So you can add a square or a circle. I like to put circles in mine. Don't try to draw anything in particular, just draw lines. Then this is the part that's the most important. You want to find any sharp corners where your lines cross and turn those sharp corners into curves, filling in the gap with ink. So there's a close-up, so all of those sharp corners get curved and turned so that each of those sections now looks like a bubble or possibly a smooth stone. So you want to do that with all of the corners.
How do you incorporate the shapes? What do you do with the shapes?
The same thing, if you've added circles, you're going to have corners. So you just round those corners. And so this is the part where that takes some time. So I'm going to step back again and oh, Alex plays some beautiful music this time. And once you've filled in all your corners, then you want to go back and add your colors. You can blend colors, you can do shading, and you can share colored pencils with your neighbor so that you have different colors to use. But yeah, if you want to just leave up the slide that shows the slide number 9, that shows where they've connected, they've rounded the corners. Yeah, that one. So I'll just step back and let you work again. I'm just going to add one more thing and then I'll step back again. Once you've put all of your color in, then you can go back over the lines and the curves, make them darker if you want. Don't hesitate to do that, and make the lines as thick as you want. They don't have to be thin, they can be really thick too. And again, once you're done, sign your work. Then turn the page over and look at your intention again and see if you've gained any new insights about it. And here's some additional examples of neurographica. Again, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Should be a different slide, but nope. Oh well, that's okay. So I hope you found one or both of these to be something that you would consider to do for meditation or for art. I've created a handout for you to take home with instructions for both. Jenny Rod and Pam Arbergreen will be at the 2 exit doors with those handouts if you're interested. And then down in Fellowship Hall, I've put up sign-up sheets for both kinds of art activities, and I'm happy to teach some classes if people are interested. So if you are, just sign up on the sign-up sheets.
Sorry. You know, my father always used to joke that he didn't get enough kindergarten. He was an attorney But sometimes you would go into his office and you'd find him playing with scissors and paper cutters and glue sticks and magic markers. And I have no idea what he was doing with them, but he just said he didn't get enough kindergarten. So, if you're like me, you might have a hard time putting it down. So if you don't feel like putting it down, you can just sing while sitting, but we do have one other hymn. This is When the Spirit Says Do. So if you're done with your artwork, you can rise in body or in spirit. So in honor of all our beloveds who are at the snow retreat, and because it also fits our theme today, for our closing reading, I'm going to share a poem written by my colleague and friend, Julian Jameco Soto, who we knew as Reverend Teresa when they served as our sabbatical minister. They wrote this in 2017. Snowflakes, a guide. How do we spring back into shape after a long week, an election season that dragged, a broken heart that's still not healed, raw but beating? No duct tape will cover those cracks. No glue will mend the gap. Some people think they can shame you, make you small by calling you a snowflake. What they don't know is this: The snow is bright because the lines and lacy edges, the crystals stacked, reflect back the light shone down on them. And the light keeps shining, just as you do. In this community, you choose each other. You insist on blazing brilliant. Your unique configuration is the universe's expression of what it means to be alive. And together, many snowflakes make a mountain. You return to knowing yourself and being yourself by the clarity of that reflection. You can lay your burdens down and rest. Lean into the place where you belong. Allow the brightness of who you are, both individual and community, to light the way toward the future you are building with your love. Let's sing together our musical benediction, There is a Love. Please join me in the words to embody our chalice flame. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Beloveds, in the face of fear and chaos, in the face of meanness and injustice, in the face of the dumpster fire that is our world right now, all we can do is shine. Shine and love and be kind and trust that that will be enough, that we'll be able to carry our values into the world, that we'll be able to do our part in healing this world whole again. It's a big task, but we're not doing it alone. Have faith. I love you all. Go in peace. Come back next Sunday.